Hey, 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 what's going on? All right. It's detected that the live chat didn't appear on your screen in the past 2 minutes. That's not true. Why do I get that every night? It's just not true. I don't know what that means. Thank you, Jones, for the daily heart me. I appreciate it. And people are starting to trickle in. Today is Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026. And I'm sitting on my shirt. Okay, that's better. And this is Yoda Live. I am Yoda. Trying to figure out if all my tech is doing what it's supposed to do. It seems like it. Made a couple changes to my audio yesterday. Just to please myself, just to make sure that I enjoy the sound of my voice. No guarantee that anybody else does, but it is what it is. So I noticed something interesting that people are getting people that are following me are getting kicked off and suddenly not following me. So I don't know what that's about. I don't have a conspiracy theory about it. It's just a thing that's going on. So hopefully that will not continue to go on, but chances are it will. Chances are, because I wear a silly grin the moment you come into view. Do. All right. So, all right, everything seems to be working correctly. So, tonight, I wanted to talk about something. I was planning on talking about this yesterday, but then I went into the city to meet one of my oldest friends. He's only in town once or twice a year from Britain. And, we just sat and talked and laughed for 3 hours. And at the end of it, my voice was shot. That's become my weakness, my Achilles heel, so to speak. It's my voice. For whatever reason, it just goes out very easily these days. And maybe one day I'll be like RFK Jr. I don't know. I hope not, because there's a lot of reasons why I hope not. I don't want to be a lunatic. That's one of them. But anyway, welcome in. A few more people are streaming in. We've got Johnny, we've got Jones, we've got Dalucia. Is that what that is? Dalusta? I hope I'm saying that somewhat correctly. So, as people are coming in, remind you, as always, do that heart me over my head. That's a good thing to do. Tap the screen, go nuts on tapping, and share out the live, all that good stuff. Let's get people in the room to talk. I don't know if my regulars are going to show up today, besides Jones, but that Jones will be more than enough for this conversation if it's just me and Jones talking. Oh, thank you for the heart me. Can't read that name. Hold on a second. Do 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 do. Come on. If it would just load up, that would be so good. Hmm. I just trimmed my mustache a little bit, and now I've got errant hairs all over the place, even though I thought I brushed them all out. I did not. Oh, it's Jenny. Hello, Jenny. Welcome, or welcome back. I think it's been a while. So, as you can see, the topic is a lighthearted one. Christianity is a blood cult, and when I say Christianity, I don't mean just Christianity. It's all of the Abrahamic cults. Jones, hang out. I will, once I play a little ditty, I will start the conversation and have you up. So just hang out, and I'll definitely bring you up in a minute. So I'm I'm gonna play a song which actually has religious connotations. It's actually my favorite Prince song, and interestingly enough, it was never released as a single. It comes from the album Love Sexy, which was released a day before my 24th birthday in 1988. It is called Anastasia, but it's not one word like the medical thing. It is two words. It's Anna, the girl's name, and then Stasia. S-T-A, or is it S-T-E? S-T-E-S-I-A. Anastasia. So here it is, Anastasia from Prince and the New Power Generation.
Have you ever been so lonely that you felt like you were the only one in this world? Have you ever wanted to play with someone so much you take anyone, boy or girl? Anastasia, come to me, talk to me, ravish me, liberate my mind. Tell me what you think of me, praise me, craze me, out this space and time. Between white and black, night and day, black night seemed like the only way. So I dance. Music late, nothing great, no way to differentiate. I took a chance. Gregory looks just like a ghost, and then a beautiful girl the most. Wets her lips to say we could live for a little while. You could just learn to smile. You and I could fly away, fly away. Oh, Anastasia, come to me, talk to me, ravish me, liberate my mind. Tell me what you think of me, praise me, craze me, out the space and time. Maybe I could learn to love. I mean the right way, I mean the only way. Perhaps you could show me, babe. Anastasia, come to me, talk to me, ravish me, liberate my mind. Maybe I could learn to love. If I was just closer to something, closer to your higher self. I don't know, closer to heaven, baby. Closer to God, closer to God. Save me, Jesus, I'm been a fool. How could I forget that you are the rule? You are my God, I am your child. From now on, for you I shall be wild. I shall be quick, I shall be strong. I tell your story, no matter how long, no matter how long. We're just a play, no master plan. Now, my Lord, I understand. God is love, girls and boys, God above. God is love, God is love, girls and boys, love.
there it is. Anastasia. Let's see. That might have that an invitation. Oh no, there it is. Still there. The request from Jones is still there. Jones, I'm bringing you up. All right. And Jones is loading up. Remember, folks, tap the screen, share the live, send the heart me in no particular order. Probably easiest to send the heart me, share the live, and then tap, 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 tap. Jones, for some reason you're not loading up. Let me drop you down and we'll try again. I'm gonna send an invitation right now. There you go. I just sent out the invitation. Hopefully this will work. You're loading, loading. There he is, Jones. How you doing, brother?
Hello.
So I wanted to talk about this particular aspect of the Bible. Did I note it as far as the actual text? Let's see. Don't think I did. Okay. So it is well known that in both the Old Testament and the New Testament there are instructions for how to maintain slaves. In the Old Testament, it's particularly dastardly. Aside from the fact that you can beat a slave to within an inch of their life, and that's like explicit as a form of management. There's this one compoundingly horrifying thing that is an instruction in the Bible. Men who are slaves can win their freedom in 7 years. However, women and children don't get the same privilege. So if a man is set free, but he doesn't want to leave his wife and family, this is what it says in the Bible. If the man proclaims his love for his family and for the slave master, then he can stay, but he now has to be a slave for the rest of his life. And he gets tagged. He literally gets a tag in his ear. I had an AI version of this drawn up. Here it is. He gets tagged just like cattle, so that he is identified as a slave for a particular slave master for the rest of his life. What do you think about that, Jones?
Well, reminds me of people who raise dogs and clip the ears and clip the tail.
That's it?
Oh, I mean, that's just like, to me, no matter what, to do to a human being or an animal is disgusting.
Now, are you talking about just the tagging part or the rest of it?
Well, identification, even branding, they branded slaves. Um, I know that my father told me the reason why Jews don't like tattoos, it was a form of identifying slaves.
Yeah, well, actually, that has to do with a passage in the Torah regarding the body being clean and unmarked and stuff like that. Um, Passport, I don't know why you're spamming the. You don't have to ask a question more than once, okay? So you're being unnecessarily rude. I don't understand. Or do you? So you obviously don't really want an answer to your question. I was about to answer you, but you're acting like such a fucking donut that I'm just glad to get rid of you, because this is just not the way to have conversation with people. You know, why are you going to ask me a question and then fucking insult me right afterwards? What kind of what kind of weird way is that to communicate? Some people get into their feelings about every fucking thing, man. It's unbelievable. But um, back to the topic at hand. Uh, the Abrahamic religions, and you mentioned tattoos and stuff like that. A part of that, of course, comes from WW2 when the people in concentration stamps had their, inmate number stamped on them. tattooed into their skin and stuff like that. So, but I think specifically there's a passage in the Torah about the body being unmarked before it gets buried, something like that. So, um, but yeah, I mean, the claim that Abrahamic religions make is that God is a loving God, and I'd love to know what people mean by that. Like, if someone who believes in this stuff can come up and talk about it, or maybe you have some insight into this, Jones. Like, when people say God is loving, what are they referring to exactly?
To me, it comes off he's very selfish. There's no other before me. That if you claim other than me, you're kicked out of the kingdom. I mean, basically, it sounds like a very jealous and petty being.
Right. Sounds very human, right? Doesn't sound like the teachings of an omniscient, all powerful, all knowing, ever present being, right? To be like, the first three commandments are don't love any other god but me, which of course means there's more gods, right? Don't put up any statues of little gods to worship because I want your attention, and don't work on my day off, right? And it's not until six, I think it's either five or six, where we get don't murk people, right? But we also have thought crime in the Ten Commandments, which is thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife or thy neighbor's oxen, blah 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 blah. So yeah, it is kind of odd. Hello, him. How you doing? Um, but so even though we went off the in a different direction slightly, my question to you was where does this idea that God is loving come from? Do you
Well,
see that? Do you when you read the Bible, do you, presuming you ever have, but when you hear about either read the Bible or hear about Bible stories, does God come across as loving to you?
I was raised by my mother who's Christian and my father's Jewish, so I get both sides of it. Um, it comes off very like, well, if you're, let's say, you're a Hittite, or if you're Egyptian, or if you're from Persia or somewhere else, God is not a fan of you or your people.
Yeah, he orders them to be slaughtered. The Midianites, the Amalekites. I think they all get slaughtered by his instructions, right?
Yeah, and even the Canaanites, which later became the Jewish people, it was monotheism over polytheism. The whole big divide of that people was because of one group believed in one God and the others believed in multiple gods.
Yeah.
And that was what the war was about.
Right. So when I hear stories from the Bible, or I mean, I haven't read the Bible in a while, but I did read it pretty thoroughly when I was in my 20s, and I do read snippets of it pretty regularly, especially when these debates come up. But um, like, we could take the most popular stories from the Bible as examples, right? Like, you've got the story of Job, right? And this is literally presented as a good story, shining God in a good light. That's how it's explained to us. Look how amazing God is because of the story of Job, or the story of Noah and the ark. Um, you know, or even what is it? Solomon and Gomorrah, right?
Oh, yeah, Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, Sodom and Gomorrah. I said Solomon. Sodom and Gomorrah. Like, you look at these stories, and when you actually hear the details of the story, if you don't have the presupposition in your head that, going in, oh, I'm about to read examples of how God is loving, if that's not present, in your head, which they want it to be, because that's why they always say that before they present these stories. Here's an example of God's love. Uh, you know, uh, 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 the Ark story, for instance. Or I brought up the story of Job first. So let's go with the story of Job. That is such a petty, horrifying story to me. In that story, the devil, who God keeps around for who knows what reason, he identifies the devil as evil, even though the devil just became the devil for one simple reason. And again, it speaks to what you were talking about, which is God's arrogance. The devil disagreed with God. He was an angel who disagreed with God. And God said, well, we can't have any of that, which sounds very current, right? That there's a leader who can't be disagreed with right now, right? But the devil was allowed to remain around for whatever reason. And one day the devil said, I can turn your most loyal subject, whoever it is that you identify as the person on earth who loves you the most, I can turn that person against you. And God said, oh, well, there goes Job. He loves the fuck out of me. Job is my number one guy, man. He can't stop talking about me. He big ups me every day, right? And God says, look, all right, you could do whatever you want to Job except for take his life. You can fuck him up any way that you can think of. You can take things from him. You could torture him, whatever you want to do. Go ahead and do that, and I bet you he still loves me, right? And so that's what the devil did. He goes about ruining Job's life, his health, getting rid of his family, getting rid of his servants, getting rid of his animals, getting rid of his land, his money. Fills him with plague and boils and pestilence and all this other shit, right? And of course, the big punchline is that Job still loves God after all of that, right? Even though these horrible things happen to him, he's like, oh no, man, I'm still riding with God. And God gets to go, aha, I told you so. I win the bet, right? And now there's an interesting aspect of this story that people usually turn to when I finish laying it out. And they say, well, God restored everything that the devil took away from Job, which is not true. Nowhere in the text does it say that Job's servants were restored. It doesn't even allude to them. It doesn't even suggest, because it doesn't say simply God restored everything. It lists the things that God restored, and on that list, there's no mention of Job's servants. So just to win a bet, God allowed the taking of life by the devil. As long as he didn't take Job's life, he was cool with taking other people's lives. Now, after all is said and done, does that sound like an example of a loving God?
No, but it reminds me a lot of Trading Places. The $1 bet.
Right. Yeah.
We're going to ruin this guy's life for $1.
Yeah. Oh, Danny's here. What's up, Danny? My level 28. He says he's reaching level 28 soon. That's exciting stuff. Yeah, and obviously that uh, even though in Trading Places the dollar bet wasn't the most important aspect of the indignity that Dan Aykroyd suffered, but it was just another kick in the nads. Like you did all this for $1. That's why at the end they pull the same thing with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy exchanging $1.
Right.
Yeah. So now we look at the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. where it's one of those weird things. Well, like if you don't want to be struck down and turned into a pillar of salt, run away from the city, leave the city to prove your love and fealty to me. And he throws in that weird caveat that you just can't run away. If you look back, you're going to be turned into a pillar of salt, which happens to the woman who turns around, probably to check on her family, and she gets turned into a pillar of salt just because God felt like it, because that to him is a justifiable punishment for someone turning around and looking back over their shoulder. That doesn't sound very loving to me. Does that sound loving to you?
No, reminds me of the tale of Hades. I've got who he was with a man was with the woman he loves, and he was the only condition is he couldn't turn back. They couldn't touch each other, they couldn't speak, but the biggest condition was you cannot turn back or you both go back to hell.
There you go. And of course, Noah's Ark is a very interesting story. And I'm just picking highlights off the top of my brain. There's all these wild stories. There's that story of the teenagers that were making fun of the bald guy. You ever hear this story?
No.
So this is one of those stories that doesn't get talked about. How you doing, Danny?
I'm hanging in there. How you doing?
I'm okay. You're a bit muffled for some reason, but I can kind of hear
Yeah, I'll
you.
be right back. I'm gonna change headbud because these here don't work very good. I'll be right back.
Okay. And I heard perfectly everything you just said. That's the interesting part. So, the story of the teenagers, there were I don't know, like 30 or so of them, 30 or 40 teenagers, and they were making fun of a bald guy for being bald. That's the whole story, as far as we know. There's no other context to this story. Uh, it's a group of children in their teens making fun of an adult man because he's bald. And God sends what they describe as a she bear to maul and murk all the children. All of them. Does what do you think of that story? Just,
I give you the equivalent of the story of Moses. What about the innocent Egyptians who had nothing to do with the Pharaoh? Just they were under his control, but
but you're burying the lead. How about I'm going to murk all the firstborn children
yeah,
and the
and all these
firstborn the
plagues and all
firstborn of
that.
all the animals too. Like that's what people celebrate when they celebrate Easter. They celebrate the murking of children. That's wild. That is absolutely wild.
And to get
Uh,
out of that killing, you have to sacrifice an animal and smear its blood.
yeah. There you go. Danny, how's it sounding now?
I think I sound better now, right?
Yes, you
Yeah,
do. Yes, you do.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
tonight we're talking about Christianity as a blood cult,
Mhm.
and so far we covered the story of Job, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. I just told the story of the 30 or 40 teenage children. I think they were all boys. I'm not 100% on that, but I think that they were a group of boys in their teens, and they made fun of a bald man, and God's punishment for that was to send a she bear, that's how they describe it, a she bear, to maul all the children and, murk them. Like, what What kind of fucking story is that? And where does God's love come into this? Does that make sense to you,
Yeah.
Danny?
No, it don't. I don't know why I've never heard that story. Of course,
I can tell you why. Because there's a reason, and it's consistent for everybody. When you go to church, the royal you, right? When anyone goes to church, you are relying on one man to interpret the Bible for you rather than reading the Bible yourself, right?
right.
So what people hear are what I like to call the Bible's greatest hits. Like if you go to church for 2 years in a row every Sunday, you're going to realize that in year 2 you're hearing the same stories that you heard in
In
year
year
1.
one,
They just
right?
keep recycling the same. And once in a while, if there's a clever preacher or whatever leader up at the front, he'll choose a part of the text that pertains maybe to something going on now, or a life lesson that he wants to teach, or something like that. But and I enjoy those actually. I enjoy when preachers can take this ancient text written by illiterate sand dwellers and apply it to what's going on today in a very interesting way. I do enjoy that. But that's why you don't hear the worst stories of the Bible, because the agenda is to paint God as loving and caring, even though the greatest hits don't do that. They just say that they
Right.
do that. Like the story of Job is a horrible fucking story. He allows the devil to torture this man just to win a bet, right? And now let's get to the story of Noah's Ark, because this is horrific. Just on the face of it, this story is absolutely horrific. Because like even Thanos only got rid of half of the population in the universe. God got rid of everybody on Earth, including children, except for a family of 8, and that those 8 people were Moses and his 3 sons and their 4 wives, right? So that already is horrifying, because why would a perfect creator create something that was so imperfect that he had to wipe out? That doesn't make any sense.
No,
But
no,
the
and I
fact is that
understand.
that's what he did. He wiped out the entire planet except for a family of 8. Does that sound loving to you, Danny?
No, no, and I understand what you were saying about the preacher. Like once every Sunday for 24 months, and he starts over, like rotates. Catholic Church does a similar thing. Every time we went to church, every few months they had a new missile that covered several. I think it was 3 months in one missile. They call 'em missile, and that you read the missile on that day and of that month on Sunday, and then the priest talks about it, and that's how cause they didn't write their own stuff. It was already pre-programmed from the church what they were going to talk about every Sunday in this missile. So, where old time preachers like the ones you're talking about, you'd go to church and he'd go through the Bible and write something and put in his own words. Uh, I could see where I would have heard something if I'd have gone that type of church. I would have heard something like that. But with this, the Catholic Church, they have an agenda when they do their gospels. They call it the gospels and stuff, and they have an agenda. And whatever we were told, that's what we were supposed to believe or feel, whatever. So,
So, getting back to the Noah's Ark story, what's your impression of that story?
well, that was just flat out. From my understanding of Noah Ark, is God was so disappointed in how it was turned out at the time. that he decided, well, I'm just going to eliminate everybody except for these few people and species and start over again. Is that the way you understood it?
Yeah.
But without any reflection of how it's going to affect anybody or any animal or whatever, he just out of cruelty.
But well, and of course the animals are a consideration, but how about the men, women, and children that
That's
did
what I was
nothing
saying.
wrong, you know?
Right.
And like how does someone get to the end of that story? And also let's add another layer to the details of that story. I got curious to find out how many people were on Earth, let's say year zero or year one, whatever. Um, and you can reverse engineer that based on population growth and how it accelerates. The bigger the population, the faster the population grows. And you can reverse engineer it to make an estimate. And the estimates that I heard were somewhere between 200 million and 400 million people that lived on planet Earth. But let's be more conservative and say that there were 100 million people on Earth at the time.
Okay.
That means that God got rid of all 100 million people except for 8 of them. And somehow this is justified. Somehow this is like people still keep going to church even though they hear this story. Somehow this is acceptable. And most bewildering is that it's an example of God's love. What am I missing? Where is the love in that story?
Well, I don't see it. I really don't. And why were those 8 people the ones that were they're considered worthy to survive out of all the millions of people?
Well, God has his mysterious ways, right? But there's another question that leads perfectly after the question you just asked, which is if we started over with 8 people, doesn't that mean that incest had to happen?
Yeah, I would think so. Absolutely.
Well, if
I
you want to
mean,
even go further back, let's go to Adam and Eve.
but
What was
but
their
before
crime?
before before we get to Adam and Eve, I know where you're going, but before we get to Adam and Eve, like is there a mathematical way or a logical way or a scientific way to get around the fact that incest had to happen after Noah's Ark?
No, nope.
Right.
Not
So
with the
yes, let's
population we have now.
so let's go back to Adam and Eve because go ahead and make that point because that's an excellent point.
Okay. I The first time I even questioned religion was when I first heard Adam and Eve. And I heard both sides because, like I said, my father's Jewish, my mother's Christian. And I said, why is knowledge bad? Why is knowing anything bad? Why is questioning God even bad? It'll either strengthen your faith or destroy your faith. But why is knowledge bad?
Which is a fair question. And what was the first knowledge that they acquired after they ate the fruit?
Well, allegedly they knew they were mortal.
Nope,
No?
that's not what it
All
says
right.
in the
So,
Bible. The first thing
okay.
that they learned was that they were naked.
Okay.
And what was their reaction to learning that they were naked?
Cover themselves up.
Shame.
Yeah.
Shame. So let's quickly go over what Genesis teaches us. Number one, it teaches us that there are multiple gods because it says, we made man in our image. We, plural, made man in our, plural, image. So that either means that there are multiple gods that are male and female, or just multiple gods. Who knows? But it obviously points to plurality, right? Um, and we learn that God is a liar because he told Eve specifically that if she ate the fruit from the tree of knowledge, that she would perish. She ate it, and she did not perish. So he lied about that. Then we learn that, in no particular order, but we learn that knowledge is dangerous. It's wrong to seek knowledge. It's wrong to question. And our bodies are shameful, and women are evil. These are all the things, these are all the lessons that Genesis conveys to us. And Genesis is the introduction to the religion. And it contradicts itself in a few ways also, but I won't get into those. But what 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 do you think of all that, Jones?
Well, it's very obedient because you don't question, you don't ask, you don't wonder, and you're ashamed of everything that you are all at the same time.
Right. And of course that's a strong means of control, Danny. What do you make of the story of Genesis? Danny?
I'm
Oh, there you are.
yeah, I'm here. I'm not here, but I'm here. You know, I'm kind of um I agree with you that that the first that you said about them being ashamed because they realized they were naked, and uh, I wasn't sure what to think about afterwards about that, other than of course there's a standing joke. That's why God wouldn't make clothes, and then when he made clothes, then they had to have money to put in their pocket. Crap story. Um,
So does anyone respond to that story of Genesis like somehow God loved Adam and Eve because he set them up to fail for some reason,
that's
right? Like
true.
like
Yeah.
why even test them? Why does an omniscient being need people to love him, adore him, and listen to him? My idea of omniscient, if you're capable of creating the universe, then why do you need the adoration of humans that you also created?
Well, if God made Eve from Adam's rib, or however it went, I don't remember where he got the rib, which one had the rib first, whatever they're talking about. Wouldn't that made them related at
Well,
one
it's sort of a
point?
clone, I guess. Scott, Satan wasn't mentioned in Genesis. It was just the snake. We
Right,
assume it's
the
Genesis,
snake.
but he was never named in Genesis.
So my
No,
thought
Cain
process
wasn't a
was
conception of Adam. Cain was the product of Adam and Eve.
right.
Yeah, Adam laid with Eve and made Cain, and then made Abel, and then Cain murked Abel. So that means Adam and Eve were such terrible parents that the first parents on earth created the first murker on earth.
Maker. Which could have been or not could have been brother and sister. It could have been the first incest too.
Could have been.
Yep.
It's kind of hard to identify exactly what Eve is. I mean, they go out of their way to say there is man, and then woman means from man, right? So woman, so
Right.
man and woman.
Right.
So is it a clone? Is it a variation? It's hard to know. I mean, God breathed dust into Adam's nostrils or so, who fucking knows? It's some sort of weird animation thing that went on. So I absolutely could see the case being made that Eve was related to Adam, but even if they weren't, where'd all these other people come from? If it was just Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel,
And then
where did
Abel
Cain
was
and Abel's
killed.
wives come from? Where, like, you know?
Well, Cain had to be real busy because he unalived Abel.
Yeah, so busy with whom?
That's why I'm saying I don't know. But did he go ahead and bang Eve a few times? I don't know.
Yeah, it's just one of those. It's one of those little details that the Bible left out, because these whoever constructed these stories. First of all, they were stealing from tons of other established religions. The Ten Commandments comes from the Tibetan Book of Dying. Um, the story of Christ comes from the story of Horus. And in fact, about 50 different religions use the same resurrection story. Born of a virgin, a healer, walked the earth with apostles, was perished by the crowd, came back to life, blah blah blah. Like there's that story's been told over and over and over again, and the story of Horus is 1800 years earlier than the story of Jesus. But
Well, even going back to the origin story, look at Lilith. Lilith didn't want to be with Adam, and that's why Eve was created.
I
Because she
don't rem-
wanted to be his equal.
I don't think that's correct. You're talking about different story. You're not talking about the King James
No,
version.
no, I'm talking about the before Eve, there was Lilith. And Lilith wanted to
No,
be his equal,
that's
and
that's
God
not
wanted
that's
her
not
to be
true.
submissive.
That's not
Oh,
in
no?
Genesis. That might be in a later story,
Okay.
but that's not in Genesis.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going by, the stories I heard growing up, that she questioned
Um,
the whole thing with God, and that's why she was kicked out before even was even created.
Good evening,
We
Yoda.
have someone that
That's
doesn't
actually
want to
my
wait to
original.
be introduced, so we already have a
I
problem
apologize.
there. I brought you up. I was just about to say hello. You couldn't wait a few seconds to let Jones finish his thought and for me to introduce you, but let's try to start over now. It looks like your name is Avian.
Yes, sir.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I apologize about that. I wasn't actually realizing. Sorry, it's ADHD on me for
No
me. That
worries.
actually,
No worries. What's
uh,
on your mind?
I was wanting to bring that up in regards to Lilith. There is actually not in the King James. There's actually another book called the Book of Nod.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if you've read it or anything. It's like roughly
No, but I know
150.
it's part of the Gnostic Bibles that weren't included and all that. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. It gives the explanation as to how Lilith actually came about. However, Lilith is from an older story from the Sumerian times, about 1500 years prior to
Right.
Judea. That was
Right.
actually brought on by Lillian, which were considered spirits.
Right.
Or,
And by the way, that's also part of what I was saying, that the Bible is like a Frankenstein religion that took from all sorts of different stories, pagan rituals, the polytheistic gods were kind of snuck in there as well. So yeah, that makes sense.
oh, absolutely. But not only in the Book of Nod, but there's also, well, actually, within the Book of Nod, it actually explains that Cain went on to marry Lilith, who was supposed to have been Adam's first wife, which is kind of weird in itself. But Lilith was created according to the Book of Nod, was created at the same time because there are technically two creation stories within Genesis. One where God creates man and woman at the same time by forming them out of clay or dust and then breathing life into their nostrils. And then the secondary, which is where God takes the rib from Adam and creates Eve.
Hmm.
So that is, again, That's actually why it came up.
Yeah,
And
and by the
again,
way,
I
that
do
doesn't even
apologize.
make sense to me. If you created Adam out of whatever you had available, why did you have to pluck Adam's rib out in order to create Eve?
No, that is like the 64. Okay, I'm going to use an old adage, the $64,000 question. That's the $64,000
Yeah, yeah,
question.
yeah. No, it's amazing to me. Like we're still in Genesis, and we've already got all these contradictions and confusions and inconsistencies. Like as a matter of fact, when they start off the book, there's a question of, well, was it the earth first? Was it the oceans first? Was it the sky first? Because they're told in different orders within the same story. Like, why? you know, could it be that it was cobbled together by committee? And when you have a lot of chefs in the kitchen, things can get confused, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
So
I mean,
my title
sorry.
is Christianity is a Blood Cult. Do you, even though we're not, we were speaking about that stuff earlier, I don't know if you were here for that, but does that title ring true to you? Does that idea ring true to you?
Actually, yes, very much so. Initially, I thought it said, when I first saw the prompt, I thought it said a blood clot. But I mean,
Bumba clock.
close to the
Yeah,
same.
I got you.
But,
Yeah,
close to the same thing.
right.
But yes, absolutely, it is.
Yeah.
Has been since its inception, since Peter,
Yeah,
actually.
and there was this the photo that I showed earlier. Danny, you didn't see this, so I'll share it for both of you. This is an AI image that I created of a slave being tagged on his ear, right? And that is an instruction that's given in the Bible for how to manage a slave. Now, but it's a specific kind of slave. It's a slave who is a man who has worked for 7 years and is now free to leave, but he's married and he doesn't want to leave his wife with the slave master. So he has to proclaim that he loves his wife and perhaps his children too, and the slave master equally. And then if he does that and stays, he is tagged and remains a slave for life. That is described in the Bible, how to do that.
It's it's in Leviticus as well as Judges, I believe.
Yeah. And then in the
Um.
New Testament, it's in Timothy.
Oh yeah, that's right. It is.
Yeah, people forget that it's in the New Testament too.
Mm-hmm.
Because people keep talking about the New Testament as though it's some radically different work than the Old Testament. No, it's just the Old Testament and the King James version is the same as the Torah, right? That's where the Torah ends, and then the New Testament is an add-on in the King James version. But it's not radically different. And the last book rather, of the New Testament is Revelations, and that's insane. That part of the Bible is absolutely fucking nuts.
It
So
is
when people are like,
absolutely
oh,
is.
that was the Old Testament, like the New Testament's any better.
You know what's crazy though is about Revelations within the New Testament. Who was that supposed to have been written by?
It's hard to say because my assumption is that it was the Council of Nicaea, but
It was.
these stories are so disjointed. They were told so long after the alleged events. Like the thing with Jesus Christ. There is literally no contemporary evidence when they say he lived from, let's say, 0 to 33 AD. There is literally not one contemporary journalist or historian or even the legal system, the Romans, no one of that time wrote about this dude. Right.
None of
So,
them
but
had.
all these people like, oh, well, how about Josephus? That was 94 AD.
Yeah.
And scholars point out that the part about Jesus that's attributed to Josephus does not sound like anything else that Josephus ever wrote. So that seems like a fucking scam. And then everything else is later than that. Now you got Pliny the Younger and Pliny the Older and all these other people that came into the hundreds, like over 100 AD. And it's like, how the fuck is that? How is that journalism? How is that history?
It's not. And the thing is, people say, well, he was around at the same time as Pontius Pilate. Okay, so at the time of Pontius Pilate, they literally kept records. They were avid record
Yeah,
keepers.
the
I mean, just
Romans are famous for how well they kept records,
and not
and
just
nobody, and they didn't write about it.
yeah, and it's the whole thing. For me, it all goes back to the whole thing in regards to the story of Exodus, who the Egyptians were also notorious record keepers. They were notorious
And all
throughout
right, so let's linger on Exodus for a moment because you bring up a great point. Because now I have to bring up anthropology, right?
Mhm.
Where are the bones? Where are all
There
the
are
bones? Because again, the estimate in Exodus is that it was probably around 2 million people. But there's a wide disparity. There's no real consensus on that number, so it's anywhere from like a couple 100,000 to 2 million people, right? So let's be ultra conservative and say 10,000 people. 10,000 people is a big group of people. And they were cutting their way. They were cutting a wide swath through the desert. And what do I mean by cutting? Well, 10,000 people have to eat, and not necessarily 3 times a day. That's a fallacy that we created in the 1500s. But they had to eat once in a while. You would assume once a day, once every couple days, right? And you know what they did after they ate? They pooped. You know what else happens within a 40-year period of people traveling? Some people perish. You know what else happens in a 40-year period of people traveling? Some new people are born. So where is all that forensic evidence?
Yeah, there's no evidence of that. And, people have tried to trace back the path of the Exodus movement.
Yeah,
First off, one
tracing
of the
back a
paths,
fictional story. Good luck.
Mhm. Well, one of the paths is funny because part of the story is Moses part of the Red Sea. But in reality, that was actually a misinterpretation. It was not Red Sea, it was the Reed Sea.
Doesn't matter what sea they called it. It was a bullshit story. Because look,
Oh,
there
no,
there are there are civilizations that are much older, civilizations that were literate rather, like the Chinese, and all of these older civilizations did not record a flood in their history. Either a flood or these seas
no,
that are
there
like,
was
or parting
the
seas or
only,
all of that shit.
none of that is ever recorded except for within the Epic of Gilgamesh in regards to a
Right,
great
which is I
flood.
think
And
like the
that's it.
oldest story known.
Yeah, it's literally the oldest story known to
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, there's the Epic of Gilgamesh, there's the Cyrus Cylinder, there's Beowulf, all of those very old English texts and the Sumerian texts and all that shit. And but anyway, so yeah, so I'm just trying to figure out how people don't see that Christianity and again all the Abrahamic gods are blood cults because that's most of the stories are horrific stories that we are told by the guy in that beautiful dress standing in the front of the room that these are stories that illustrate God's love, and I have yet to see an example of that. Where is God's love? I mean, even Jesus Christ had an angry side to him. He cursed a fig tree that did not have ripe figs on it, even though the fig tree was out of season. And he cursed it to wither and perish because he wanted figs and the fig tree didn't have figs on it. That's pretty fucking petty.
Oh, that's very petty.
Yeah.
But going back to one of your points that you made earlier, I have been I have been trying to question this for so freaking long. If an omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient God, why would they need worshipers? Why would they need any type of devout following? Is it the I'm not saying I believe in it because I really don't. Is it because they derive their power from that?
Well, I think
Somehow
I
metaphysical?
think what happened with societies that are, let's say, morally organized around a deity, what that enabled the leaders of that society to do is co-opt the deity and say, I am ordained by God, therefore I rule over you, right? And when you're illiterate and probably inbred and probably a lot stupid, and you hear this guy in, beautiful clothing that speaks very well and that, has a group of people taking care of him and all that, you go, oh wow, that guy says he's ordained by God. I guess that must be true because he looks beautiful and he speaks so well, and he's got all these people following him, so I guess we should listen to him. I kind of
The
think that was
anointing
the
is
point,
always in.
and by the way, here's the biggest hint that maybe I'm onto something. And again, I don't claim to be right about this, but maybe I'm onto something. The most popular version of the Bible is the King James Bible.
Who who literally proclaimed that he was anointed by God
Yeah.
to
And
be
who was
king.
a huge piece of shit.
No, that's an understatement. Literally had his version written just so he could divorce his wife.
Yeah. A lot like
And people,
Henry VIII creating a whole new religion just so he could get divorced. Yeah.
so it's
What was
really
it? The Church of England? Is that what he created?
Church of England.
Yeah, yeah,
That's why
yeah,
they broke away from the Catholic Church.
yeah. Just so he could bang indiscriminately. Oh man, yeah, it's wild. I just, this is something where when I was 7 years old, I was in the church and I was noticing that there seemed to be a disconnect. I didn't have the vocabulary to think it through, but it just felt weird. Like I remember the thing that really got me is, how the Catholic Church loves to have these call and response moments in the sermon where they'll say something like, God is with you, and then the preacher sits there and waits for the crowd to respond to him and also with you. And now, if someone says God is with you, that sounds like a really lovely thing to say. So when the response comes back, and also with you, and there's this lifeless quality to it, as a 7-year-old, I was like, that doesn't seem right. Right. And again, I didn't know exactly what it was. I just knew it didn't feel right to me. You're saying something that should sound nice and lovely and, exalted and all that stuff, but you sound depressed. In your eyes, there doesn't seem to be any acknowledgement of the exchange. It just seems to be habitual. And again, none of this occurred to me at 7, but this is what I was feeling. And then when I was 10, I was thrown out of Sunday school for asking questions, and that's what sealed the deal. I was like, yeah, this is obviously nonsense, because it just never made sense to me. And if you can't sell a 10-year-old on your story, maybe your story sucks.
Yeah, that's actually one reason I actually got kicked out of Sunday school as well. Literally, I was 8 when they were bringing up the whole thing. It was the parable in regards to the bears coming after the bald man or the children because they made fun of the bald man. Why?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I spoke about that earlier.
Why?
The she bear that
Yeah,
that mauled the children because they made fun of him for being bald.
yeah. I mean that's petty.
And horrifying.
That's freaking petty. Yeah.
Like, because there's no, like, when you read that section of the Bible, you're like, did I
There's
miss
no
something? Like,
moral.
what is the context here? Like, they made fun of this dude for being bald, and God decided that they had to be perished? Like, what?
There's no moral acumen behind that. There's nothing moral about that
Right.
story.
It's just an exhibition of power that's unrestrained and vicious. Because I think one of the big motivators in religion is fear, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that's how the Republican
Absolutely.
Party motivates MAGA hats now, right? It's
Yep.
all, brown people are coming to get you. That's the big one. They're coming to take your work. They're coming to grape your wives and your daughters. They're coming to show off
The
their big junk in front of your face and humiliate you.
the
Like, you know,
LGBTQIA are coming into your
yeah,
schools to teach your kids how to be gay.
right.
Yeah, all of it. I mean, that's honestly.
Oh, hold
Excuse
on.
me.
I'm sorry. Hold on. Hold that thought. We have an
Hmm.
apologist in the crowd, Chris. He says your personal experiences or the people you encounter does not reflect Christianity. You're right. You know what does reflect Christianity? Christianity. And Christianity has a history. Like, how about the Inquisition, the Crusades, and the witch hunts? Those were somewhere around 700 to 900 years of carnage that the church sponsored. What the fuck else do you need to know? You think that's my opinion? It ain't. That
Nope.
is a fact of history. So keep your apology bullshit to yourself.
And didn't the
Oh,
church run things during what we call the Dark Ages after the
yeah.
Roman Empire fell? So why would it be the Dark Ages when religion took over?
Well,
So
I don't know. I don't really know why they call it the Dark Ages because there was still science and math and music and art. I'm not quite sure. What does anybody know why they called it the Dark Ages?
it was. I do actually. It was considered the Dark Ages because in Europe is when the Black Plague came through.
Gotcha. Okay.
But
Right.
also, but you are correct because it really should not be considered the Dark Ages for one reason alone. There, it was only centralized in Europe, not
Yeah.
in, not around the rest of the world, because the rest of the world they were advancing. I mean, that's when algebra was literally invented. That's when calculus was invented in
Yeah.
the
That they
Middle.
stole from the Middle Easterns.
Hmm.
Hey, Chris, I'm going to invite you up because obviously what you have to say is going to be hard to type out. But what you have to say so far is nonsensical. So I want to give you an opportunity to just talk to me about it. Um, you can deny history all you want, but it's still fucking history. And I don't need you to agree or disagree with history. History's fucking history. And the Catholic Church is a disgusting organization. Okay? It's a disgusting organization that tried to hide the fact that priests were harming children in the worst way you could possibly harm children. And they still do it to this day. So you can talk about how it doesn't reflect this and that, what the doctrine teaches. What is the doctrine? The doctrine teaches that you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed of your body. You should be ashamed of your feelings that God fucking programmed into your body. Why does my body work the way it does? Why did God design me this way and I'm not supposed to feel the way that my body is designed to feel? That's fucking illogical.
Well, that's assuming that Chris has any logic.
Oh, look, he said, love your neighbors as they love themselves. Love your enemy as they love. Okay. Yeah, but how many neighbors did God command to be perished from the earth violently? And then he instructed them to murk the males, keep the younger males for slaves, murk the women who had known men, and keep the younger virgins to yourself. That's the loving shit that you're talking about? That's an example of loving thy neighbor? Get the fuck out of here with this nonsense. You have the mentality of a fucking 10-year-old. I
I
can't.
love it when
It's just annoying to me. It's so annoying when people talk. It's like if you tell a 7-year-old Santa Claus doesn't exist, they get all upset. It's like hey, your book is the evidence that I need for the things that I'm saying. And
Exactly.
on top of your fucking book, there's the behavior of the people that believe in your book. There's a lot of history, lots of history that has nothing to do with your invisible friend in the sky, whether it's Satan or God. It has nothing to do with it. It's how humans have behaved throughout history. Here, let me give you an example. Something that's still going on today, right? Circumcision. Do you know that in New York City, a parent that wants to allow for circumcision, especially the way the Jewish ceremony goes, the bris goes, they have to sign an informed consent form. You know why? Because over 100 children a year perish from that procedure. And you know, one of the main ways they perish is through STDs, because the moils still suck the skin and the blood from the end of the unit, and that is what perishes those children. They perish from STDs during that ritual.
And
That's why I said it's a blood cult.
yes. So may I
Before
ask,
we move on, Danny and Jones, any reaction to the thing I just said about circumcision?
Well, I jokingly said to my grandfather and my father, I want my foreskin back. I didn't choose it. I was a child. I believe you should be at least at the age of 16 to make that decision.
And why is it even a decision? What's the utility
No.
of this? Do you know, here, let me share with you a statistic, and this is based on studies that have been done for a very long time. Children who are circumcised, boys who are circumcised, have a lower pain tolerance, not a higher one, a lower one. They feel pain more acutely, and they carry the trauma, because remember, there's I think now in certain places they have to have anesthetic to numb them out, but before that there was no numbing. The child felt every bit of that pain.
it wasn't a
Mateo, thank you for joining us. How you doing this evening?
Hey, how y'all doing? I just
Good. I
wanted to
can
ask.
barely hear you. I can barely hear you.
Is this better?
Much
Okay.
better. What's
that
on
better?
your
Okay.
mind?
Well, I grew up in a Christian school. I've deconstructed because I studied world religion in college, and I'm just curious. I've never heard the concept of a blood cult. Like, what exactly? Like,
Well, when you look at all the murkering, I can't say the real word. When you look at all the murking and perishing and ritualistic sacrifices and rituals like circumcision, you know, seems like a blood cult to me.
you mean like all the violence in the Old Testament? Is that what you're saying? Or
It's not just in the Old Testament. Violence is in the New Testament also.
okay, okay, all right. I hadn't heard that term before. Was just
Yeah.
curious.
But do you agree or disagree?
I can't give an answer there. I don't know. I knew that it always messed with me. The story about I think Abraham, like being
Mhm.
asked by God to sacrifice his
Horrifying
child.
story. Horrifying story.
Yeah, there's a funny Family Guy clip like when they're walking down the mountain. It's like that's awkward, awkward conversation.
Yeah,
So I
because
do remember
because
thinking,
very few people think of it from the perspective of Abraham. You
mhm.
know, like Abraham allowed this entity, which was probably just voices in his head, to convince him that he had to take his only son out. And he's got a dagger in his hand, ready to do the deed, lifts it up, and God was like, "Hey, I was just kidding, man. You don't have to do that."
Yeah,
What do you
it does
think? What do you
sound
think
very
that does to
violent.
Abraham? What do you
It's very
think?
violent.
Well, what do you think that trauma does to Abraham? Do you think that's a good thing that he experienced?
Well, no,
I
to
don't.
Isaac, right? The son, right? Isn't it Isaac? Is that his son?
I think that was the name.
Or
Yeah.
was it Jacob? It was either Isaac or Jacob, but yeah, no. It's a very violent story. So. Can I ask what your theological
Chris says you need to read what Paul has explained about circumcision. Why?
Oh, I can't stand Paul. Can I be honest?
Why?
Now that I've deconstructed,
Why
just
do
want
I
to
have
say
to
it.
read fictional stories from people who didn't exist?
No, Paul existed, dude. He existed.
I'm saying these stories are fiction. Whether
They had Roman
they're
tax
written by
records
real
about
people or
Paul.
not, like there's a part, like the book of Matthew starts off by saying, like, oh, this was probably anonymous. You know, like a lot of these people these stories didn't even get cobbled together until over 300 years after the supposed time that they're referencing.
Yeah.
So, like,
Well, the oral tradition was there, obviously.
yeah, but okay, you ever play telephone game?
Right, exactly.
Tell me how strong the oral tradition is.
No, I agree. And I don't trust the Vatican. I know about the Council of Nicaea in 325.
Yeah.
Mary Magdalene supposedly owned a huge fishing company and was not a prostitute and financed Jesus'
Well, the
ministry.
Bible actually never says she was a prostitute. That's just a mistake that people make because it was talking about a prostitute and then it cuts to her, but they conflate the two that don't. It never specifically said that she was a prostitute.
Right, okay. Well, the perfume she washed Christ's feet with was a year's denarii salary in that time. So she was very wealthy. She owned a very big fishing company. Guess what? Guess who fishermen were? Christ's disciples. They don't teach this in the church. I learned it in my world religions. So anyway, fun chatting.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming up. I appreciate it.
Yeah, bud. You too.
All right. Take care. Look at Chris's question. Look at the illogical way that this guy's mind works. Explain to me, if these books are fictional, explain why is there prophecy? What the fuck does one have to do with the other? Okay? First of all, the books are not fictional. The Bible actually exists, right? The stories are fiction. Okay? These are fictional stories written by people that wanted to control other people. There's no eyewitness accounts of anything. The only place these stories exist is in the Bible. They don't exist anywhere else. Nowhere outside of the Bible does any of this stuff go on. Why is that? Why are there no third parties to witness these things, like the 500 people that supposedly saw Christ when he resurrected? Why are there no first person accounts, no interviews of these people? Why is that? Okay, I don't need to hear water running in the back, that's for sure. So Danny, you still hanging with us? The Ginger Crusader, or Ginger, sorry, the Ginger Crusader.
I'm hanging to the right.
Okay, cool.
Actually to the left.
The Ginger Crusader, how you doing?
Nice to meet you, bro.
Hey, nice to meet you. What's on your mind?
You all right? Christianity is a cult, but it's not a blood cult. It is a sex cult. Don't we tell you why?
Yeah, just choose your words carefully because TikTok is very sensitive about certain things. Go ahead.
Yes, but when the Bible mentions the comings of Jesus Christ, it's not about like going somewhere. He's literally gonna come, like as in like coming, like he is the edgelord. Like that's why Christianity is all about orgasming and coming. It's all about reproducing. It's about having so many kids and taking over the world. Like you are right, Christianity is a cult, but it's not a blood cult. It's a sex cult. It's a cult of lust.
Can those two things be true at the same time?
Perhaps. Maybe it's a blood sex cult.
Could be. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. So Danny, your thoughts so far, because we're getting ready to wrap up because this conversation seems to be losing steam.
Well, all I can say is that thank God my brother was snipped and I wasn't. So even as a great Democrat that I am, I'm still carrying a Republican with me all the way. So, but I never ever could imagine having that done. To be honest with you, I thought it was cruel circumcision to me is not necessary, even though they say it's for medical reasons to reduce infection
Yeah, which is not true at
and
all.
right. So I
Yeah, it's
never.
proven wrong.
What's that?
I was going to say that was actually proven wrong, like
Yeah,
about
yeah. There's
27
no
years
evidence
ago.
of that, but we can cover that in a minute. But go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, that's basically what I was saying. Uh, I'm just glad I never had to have my son because when I adopted Daniel, they did that in the hospital before we even got him. So he was just a couple months old by that time. But anyway, no, I hear you. To me, it made no sense, and I still don't see the religious part of it in the Bible that said that should be done. I just never could understand that part of it.
Well,
Can
it's
anybody
definitely
explain that to me?
it is discussed in there, but here's the thing. Again, it's illogical because God is perfect and God created us this way. Why would you have to remove a part of my body that God created?
Yeah, that I agree with that part too. So you know, plus I mean, hell, I had to, if that hadn't happened, I'd have a 2 incher instead of a 4 incher. I mean, let's face it. You know, when it expands, so I had some shrinkage. Some people have shrinkage, I didn't. So
All right. So, Chris, I mean, not Chris, I'm sorry, Jones, what do you think? You have to unmute yourself. You still there, Jones? Maybe not. All right. So let's go back up to Avian. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I want to apologize. I did have water running in the background. It showed
Yeah,
on my end. It was
no worries.
muted. Um, I'm trying to I'm trying to create some pork. I'm doing a sorry, it's cooking. Anyways, so yeah, my wife and I we were literally just discussing that situation yesterday. In fact, in regards to circumcision, saying if we ever had a son, would I want him to be circumcised? I said no. And I said, because it's not a necessary procedure.
And it's
Um,
dangerous. It actually
it
results
is.
in over 100 children a year perishing.
Hmm. But I mean, it's just no. It's because there's no medical necessity to it for me.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, I was younger and I had that done to me when I was a baby, but I had no control of that. I mean, I wish there was something that could be done in the way of saying, "Oh, I'm going to sue my parents because they didn't get my consent," which
Right.
would be ridiculous at this point.
Yeah, and very often, same thing with little girls getting their ears pierced. Like, no one's asking them if they want that, you know?
Oh, that's
And
actually something my wife and I did do in regards to our daughter. We made sure to wait until she wanted to get hers done.
yeah,
And now she's in gymnastics and she can't wear them, unfortunately.
there you go. But yeah, no, it's just again, this all goes under the blood cult category. The heading, it's you see like a ritual like circumcision is completely unjustifiable. And even though I cited the statistic of how many people perish, that's not the whole story because of the survivors are very often traumatized. Very often it leads to a loss of sensation, infection, all this other stuff. But that the trauma of the pain, because again, until recently, it was done without anesthesia at all. And
Yeah.
the when you read how it's done, it's like what are these fucking people thinking? There's and it's a long lasting trauma in some cases. It's just I see no upside to it whatsoever. But it's just another little example of what blood cults do. You know.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Um, and if I am not mistaken, so this kind of brings it around. It wasn't Was it not Yahweh that actually instructed for the first circumcision?
I forget. I know it's tied to the story of Abraham, but I don't know the exact order, like when it was first introduced and how. Because I'm just so blown away by like the fact that it's still happening. Like this
Right.
nonsense written about 1700 years ago is still happening. Like we know better about so many different things. Why is this still going on? That's why Christopher Hitchens said, the title of his book, he had a title and subtitle. Title, uh, God is not great. The subtitle was how religion poisons everything, or how religion poisons everything. Right? Because it really
Yeah,
does.
actually.
When you introduce these barbaric practices into society that have no rhyme or reason, that have no upside to them whatsoever, all you're doing is slowing society down.
Greatly. I mean, so there is one thing that I remember. Can't remember if it was Hitchens or, oh God, what was the other guy's name? Also from England. Not Hawking's, but there was another philosopher, but he was more anti Christianity or anti religion in general. Um, I can't.
You're
I'm
talking
trying to
about
think of his
Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris?
Harris.
Okay.
Harris. It was like, okay, so I actually watched one of his seminars he held. It was absolutely amazing, and this was when he was in the U.S. He was in Atlanta in the around 1997 or so, and I went to see him. It was really interesting because he actually said somebody asked him a question somebody asked him in the audience, what would happen if we got rid of all religions? He said his exact words were, if we got rid of all current religions, there would be something to take their place. It's not science that would take their place, but something in a metaphysical sense, because there are too many people that are devout in regards to metaphysical or supernatural processes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't particularly see that as a valuable um, question, only because there's so many variables to the answer of that question. But we could reverse engineer it and ask, well, what was happening before religion? The earth
Yeah,
was rotating just fine. People were figuring it out. Justice was being meted out. So we never needed religion. It was an
well,
invention of manipulation.
it is, but so this is actually something that
I mean,
I
what
looked
what
at.
problems does religion solve that society wasn't able to solve before it?
None.
None. There was morality before religion.
There
Uh,
was.
I mean, we could. There's the records everywhere show that. Way before the Bible was ever written, way before the first
Mm-hmm.
religious tome ever was ever written, people figured out that some things were unacceptable. They figured out how to punish anyone that transgressed and did those unacceptable things, all before anything was ever written down on paper to instruct them about morality. So I think the answer to the question of is we got rid of all religion, what would happen? Nothing, except maybe more progress more quickly.
There absolutely would be a lot more progress, especially in the scientific fields.
Yeah, I
Not
mean,
just science, but
science
also
answers the questions. I
philosophical.
mean, religion doesn't answer any questions. And if there is a subject that you could claim religion speaks to, it certainly doesn't speak to it better than science does.
Yeah. One thing I do like to ask a lot of people, especially the quote unquote Christians, modern day Christians, when they say, well, you only have a theory on evolution, you only have a theory on the Big Bang. I always ask them, do you know the difference between a hypothesis and a theory?
Yeah, unfortunately, theory is one of those shitty words in the English language that has more than one meaning, because that's how
Mm-hmm.
shitty the language is. Like, there's no reason to have two meanings for the word theory. It's dumb. Come up with two different words, you know. But Chris says you make claims about the world in the beginning, but how do you know this? I literally explain that. See, your childish fairy tale is so noisy in your head that you cannot hear the words that I'm using to explain myself. I don't make frivolous claims like I have an invisible friend in the sky, because when you make a claim, especially as the claim gets more and more involved and significant, it is incumbent upon you to provide the evidence for that claim. That's how science works. Scientists can't just come out and say, hey folks, I'm going to explain to you how things are, and then no one asks questions, which is what religion requires of you. They're going to make a claim, but they will not allow conversation. Or they will finish every conversation with you just have to have faith, which is antithetical to intelligence. Okay? So what scientists do is they make a claim, and then all other scientists, which is what peer review is they try to prove that person's claim wrong every way imaginable. And once enough scientists fail to prove a claim wrong, is it accepted as fact. Religion doesn't do that. And so the claims I'm making about the world are demonstrable because the world kept records. People wrote shit down. So you can infer that right before they wrote these things down, these things were happening. You see how fucking easy that is? Anyway, final thoughts. Let's wrap this shit up. Avian, thank you so much for being a part of the evening. You're welcome anytime. I'm here Monday through Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern. I don't always talk about religion. In fact, I rarely talk about religion, but it does come up.
I know you normally
And
do politics.
since I was just seeing the story about circumcision yesterday, I was like, I have to talk about this. But anyway, any final thoughts for the evening?
For me, yeah.
Yeah.
Chris, you need to seriously look into deconstructing your own beliefs. Look into actual history, not just what is written down in the. I would actually call it a anthology rather than a Bible or a holy book. It's literally an anthology with a bunch of parables in it. So I would highly recommend you do that, Chris. Science does change, unlike religion, or unlike what indoctrinated people actually believe in regards to the Bible. Science absolutely changes, and that's what makes science awesome.
Yeah. And anyone who doesn't like science, what the fuck are you doing on TikTok?
No kidding.
Again, thank you so much, Avian. Welcome anytime. Take care. Okay, so let's move on to Jones. Any final thoughts for the evening, Jones?
Well, I believe if you believe too much without looking into, investigating, and trying to understand, then you're the biggest fool.
That's a strong point. All right. Thank you so much, brother.
Good night,
Have
my
a good
good
night.
friend.
All right. Danny, please unmute yourself. There you go. Any last thoughts for the evening?
Well, it was an interesting discussion. Sorry I was late getting to the show, to the live. I would say that use logic when it comes to this more than your heart or your soul. You know, keep an open mind. That's basically what I'd like to say. I am doing What's My Line tomorrow. It's Wednesday.
Excellent.
That's the plan. My new show, What's My Line. If none of you have ever been to that show, that was a show that was on from 1950 to 1970. It was on CBS. And it was an incredible, fun show to watch, fun to participate in. And I hope that you all join me at 3 p.m. Pacific time at Grandpa Denny's place for What's My Line. And with
All
that, never look down on someone unless you're helping them up. Fuck Donald Trump and stop the genocide in America.
right. Have a good night. All right. Good stuff. Well, I knew that this was going to be an interesting conversation, or at least I had hoped that it was going to be an interesting conversation. I was not let down. I'm glad that there's always childish people in the comments, because it just reminds me about how goofy religion is. People that don't need facts for anything. They just accept whatever mommy and daddy told them and what society told them, and don't have the maturity or the intellect or the curiosity to find their own answers. So it's good that those people are always making noise in the comment section. It just reminds me of why humanity has not progressed further than it has, because the childish people unfortunately have too much influence on society. So, with that, as I said earlier, I am here Monday through Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Wednesdays, I usually do Wednesday Wonder, where we contemplate some aspect of life. So, hopefully, I'll see you then. Otherwise, either way, peace, love, and granola. Have a good night.